advisors, I'm super excited to introduce you to Elements in Real Life. This is a series of videos we're putting together to help you better understand how to do financial planning with Elements. Each week, Elements advisors will take real client questions and show you how they use the vital signs to provide real advice. So check it out, and of course, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Well, hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Elements in Real Life. I'm Brandon Galici. I'm an Elements ambassador and founder of Galici Financial, and I'm joined with Erick Baskin today. If you want to introduce yourself, Erick.
Yeah, hey guys, Erick Baskin. I run a fee-only financial planning firm, Baskin Financial Planning in Dayton, Ohio. Thanks for having me, Brandon.
Yeah, no, we're super excited for today's conversation, and you specifically work with folks in the military, and that's going to be the purpose of today's question. So if you want to pull up the scorecard and give it or tee us off on what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so the question we're gonna answer today is a real client case from this week. A client that came to me and said, "Hey, can I get out of the military, and how does that affect me in my retirement?" He's at 13 years of service. So in the military, if you hit 20, that's when you get a pretty nice pension. So he's like 7 years away from there, but because of some personal and family reasons and things like that, he's thinking about getting out, and kind of came to me and was like, "Hey, can I do this? Like, what impact does that have?" And so that's kind of like the burning question that he came to me with this week. And I'll talk you through kind of how we can use elements and the scorecard to show them that in a really digestible way. But Brandon, since you don't know the client and you don't know the situation, I'll just like give you first shot at what you see here generally on the scorecard. This is a 37, 35-year-old couple. They have a couple kids, I think 5 and 7. And you know, the active duty member is working. The spouse makes some side income. So that total income about 153.
Okay, yeah. So I'm really excited to see how you're able to manipulate this to specifically answer that question, because obviously this is your niche and I haven't used elements for this purpose. So I'm really excited to see that. So I'm going to focus more on the cash flow row since they are 37 and 35. So looking at that savings rate of 19%, clearly they've been very diligent. They're also working with you, so that makes sense. So they have really healthy savings rate there, anywhere between 10 to 20, typically pretty normal. So that's on the very high end of the range. They've kept their debt rate really low at 13. Tax rate, you know, that is what it is. Not a lot of flexibility there. And even based on all of those, you know, spending at 50%, some could say, oh, maybe that's a little bit high. But again, looking at their saving 19% and their debt rate's only 13, I wouldn't even be batting an eye with their burn rate and what they're spending. So from a cash flow perspective, which is where I'm drawn to first, is yeah, I would give this client 2 thumbs up. They're doing a really good job.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They have debt rates, yeah, totally manageable. Tax rates super low, right? A lot of military pay is tax free. A large portion of it. So you get a housing allowance that's tax free to actually live in Virginia, a really high tax state, or sorry, high cost of living state where that housing allowance is very healthy. So that's why
Sure.
you're going to see such a low tax rate, even though given income is 153. So obviously you start to think about things like, okay, Roth contributions start to make a lot more sense in these years. We have, you know, our real taxable income on our tax return is much lower than we're actually realizing in a take-home context. Another thing to point out here from the scorecard is RT is 0, right? So they're renting. They don't have rental properties and they're renting. So this debt rate, that's something to point out, is like that isn't mortgage debt. That's car debt and a little bit of consumer debt. So,
Okay.
you know, when you look at a liquid term score over 100K in liquid assets, you know, starting to, I think, pay down some of that debt or just eliminating it is something definitely to think about, taking into account like what the interest rates are on that debt.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point too. And that's really easy to see. Even I talked with Colton a couple episodes ago on how missing data can almost tell a story, or in this case, you can see, right, there isn't any real estate. So all of that debt has to be either car, consumer, student loans, things like that. And you see a good opportunity there with liquid term, like you mentioned. So yeah, really like that. And again, all at a glance in seconds, you're able to see all of that data and formulate that.
Yeah, absolutely. If we draw our eyes to the top row where we see equity rate and insurance rate, we're really going to think about risk, right? In that top row, how much risk we're taking with our assets to grow them, and then how much we protected our income, right, with life insurance, disability insurance, and liability insurance. So that equity rate's kind of low, right? For somebody
Yeah.
in their 30s. And really the huge kicker is this is a lot. It's a lot of this is sitting in cash. So
Okay.
that's where like this conversation needs to happen. Hey, like to grow this number, like we need to expose more of our assets to the equity markets. We need to expose them to stocks to grow them so that we can someday be financially independent. This is I certainly like liquidity just as much as anyone, but that's probably a little heavy on the liquidity. I think we're having this conversation literally this week to pay off some things, to make Roth IRA contributions, to kind of put this money to work a little bit more, and we can bump this number up. On the insurance side of the house too, like we're decently covered, at least for one spouse. We could probably do with some more term insurance to make sure that all this future income, right? We're in our 30s. We got a lot of future income in front of us. So we just want to make sure that's protected.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And even with that liquidity discussion, so it looks like you're going to recommend, knocking out some of that potentially higher interest rate debt. That makes a lot of sense. What about a brokerage account, just a standard after-tax account? And then obviously then that allows them to have more equity exposure there while still maintaining that liquidity. Because I really feel like this is something in the industry that's not talked a lot about. It's dump as much money as you can into your retirement accounts. But if you ever need access to this money, you want to take a sabbatical, retire early, then this is obviously an awesome opportunity to still build wealth while maintaining access to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of that. It's an account that nobody talks about, right? Just the plain old brokerage account. Simple. It's almost too simple. That's why nobody talks about it. It's not fancy. It isn't IULs. It's not Roth IRAs. It's just a taxable brokerage, but lots of flexibility there. They have 2 young kids. Maybe we use that to pay for college, some of college. So tons of use cases there. Okay. Now that we've got kind of our framework of what we think about this scorecard, let's think about the question, what would it look like for me to for this client to get out of the military in context of really this TT score? So that's a measure of financial independence, right? 2.6, their net worth divided by their spending. So we want that score to be somewhere between typically 25 and 30 for them to be retired or financially independent or work optional, whatever term you want to use. So I think because we have that wrench of military pension plus lots of military members when they separate or retire, they also get tax-free disability payments depending on what kind of disabilities they have. So from the VA, so super, super powerful from a financial planning perspective. So for this client specifically, we're projecting his tax-free disability income to be $2,000, and we're projecting his pension to be $5,000 if he makes it to 20. Okay. So we're talking $7,000 of tax-free income if he sticks it out 7 more years. So right now we're spending $9,000 a month. So to manipulate that data to kind of show him, okay, we're at a 2.6 TT right now. We got kind of a long way to go in a normal retirement context. But if you were to stick it out 7 more years, we can, behind the scenes, we can change that spending number from $9,000 down to $2,000. So our portfolio only needs to generate $2,000 a month of income. So from a planning perspective, it should update. There it is.
Boom.
So all of a sudden our TT is at 10 because we decided to stick it out. And that TT is going to continue to grow extremely rapidly. If we're getting out, we've got excess income now because we probably get out at 40 something and we go get a job. This is going to continue to stay high. We're putting away, more than we even are going to need per month from our portfolio. So you can see very, very quickly by sticking it out 7 more years, just how impactful that is to their financial independence plan. And then how quickly this number will be in that 25 to 30 range where we're going to be financially free. So I think very quickly you can show the client, we can do Monte Carlo. We can totally bust out the spreadsheet. And I did. I did for this client. It's a big decision. But honestly, this is way more impactful and way more tactile, I think, for the client to be able to grasp, I'm accelerating my financial independence. So my financial independence plan so quickly by just sticking it out to get that pension. It's just so impactful.
Right. And yeah, I agree. Impactful, and you're able to explain it in a much more concise way. I mean, you're 4xing your total term score approximately, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, obviously you already explained what that was. And then clients just understand that versus, hey, well, based on 1,000 scenarios, if you do this, then you have a 97.96 probability of success versus if you do this other option, it's a 92.74. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, Eric, what just tell me what to do versus, hey, instead of having, 2.6 years of spending, and we'll say, even if that bumped up a little bit, 3 years, we'll call it 3 to 4 years of spending by the time, they build up their net worth in those amount of years. Hey, instead of having 3 years, you've got over 10. Oh, oh, wow. Oh, and then even the liquid term side, because obviously all of the term scores, because all of the term scores are
Yeah.
calculated based on spending, look at liquid term now as well, because when your need is only, in this example, $2,000 a month, and I know someone out there is going to say, well, you guys have not factored in inflation yet. You're right, we have not factored in inflation, but we could, pretty quickly do some mental math and
Pensions
figure
and
out.
disability, military pensions and disability payments are all inflation adjusted. They're adjusted. So we're
Oh, never mind. Even better. Even better. See, like that was I didn't realize that. It's not my niche, but even better. That makes sense. So even inflation's not that big of a deal. And like you said, they're gonna work a job of some sort. So
yeah,
if they could literally make a minimum wage
yeah,
and make this plan work.
yeah, yeah. Pretty impactful to be able to show them that. And ultimately, like I think the conversation, it goes to this client, like he has options to do either. If we keep, that's what I told him, if we keep putting away 30 grand a year, like you can get out tomorrow and say goodbye to that pension and you're going to be fine. You're
Right.
37. We're going to expose assets to equity markets. We're going to grow them. We're going to have a few $1,000,000 at retirement. Like it's all doable, but we can, I told them this, we can pretty much dummy proof this plan if we stick it out. We just cut that need to 2 grand a month of from your actual portfolio. It just makes everything else so much easier. I mean, gosh, look at how much, 7 years from now, look at how much cash he really needs to be holding. Well, when you only got to worry about 2 grand a month, not very much. So the conversation I think really showed him that sticking it out 7 more years probably does make the most sense. And I think that's the path we're going to take.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I like how you even mentioned there too, Eric, of he still has the choice. Like you're not saying you have to go
Yeah.
do this way or do that way. But now that you're showing him the information in a very digestible way, now I'm sure even if he didn't want to stick the 7 years out, now seeing this, that's extra motivation, right? Like even saving money is not always the most fun thing, but whenever we attach it to a goal and we have a deep why and it's tied to our purpose, it's a lot easier to make those, we'll call them sacrifices or changes in behavior when it's attached to a greater why. And in this case, you just gave him his greater why, right? So it's going to be, you're probably even improving his current life over the next 7 years, just knowing that, hey, this is going to be worth it. And here's why. So you're just really connecting that purpose. And that's an awesome conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that, Brandon. Anything else you see? Anything else you see you wanted to talk about on this one?
No, other than I think this is another example of having a niche like this is so powerful because there were several things that I even had quick questions to that you're like, oh no, that this is inflation adjusted, or hey, a
Yeah.
lot of this $153,000 of income is actually coming as tax free. That's why the tax rate is so low, and so you get even more data knowing this is a military client than even someone like myself. So just another plus for niching down, which I know the industry has heard a ton of, but you can see how your niche can easily apply inside of elements. So kind of a twofer today, Eric.
Absolutely. And in that, like I think like even like this TT score for those that are on pensions, if I have a bunch of clients that are on pension, well, I can almost benchmark them all against each other from their TT score, their adjusted TT. I would call this an adjusted TT score because
Yeah,
it's, we're taking into account the actual spending that they have. Now, the actual data and elements long term, I'll probably keep real spending numbers in there
sure.
just for tracking purposes. But when we're having the financial independence conversation, I think it's really helpful to know how the software works and then also know your niche and be able to manipulate to make those two things match.
Yeah, I love it. Anything else, Eric?
I don't think so. No, this is fun. Thanks for having me, Brandon. This is fun talking about this case.
Yeah, this was great. Always great chatting with you too, Eric. This was so valuable for me. And I'm sure the advisors out there watching as well. And thank you to you, the advisor community, for checking out these Elements in Real Life series. Make sure if you haven't already, you comment below, or make sure that you book a demo and see how Elements can help you have even more meaningful conversations like this and boost your practice moving forward in the future. We'll catch you next time. See you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
So what did you think about that? We'd love to hear your thoughts about how we answered that question. Do you think that you would have answered it differently? Comment below and let us know. Now, if you have a scorecard that you want us to dissect, or a client question you want answered using Elements but aren't sure how, send us the client's one-page plan to cs@getelements.com, and we hope to catch you next time.